So he's announcing this defense industrial policy, about a $6.6 billion plan over 10 years, but a lot more money on the table than that. About $180 billion the federal government expects in that time period it will spend on directly on defense procurement. That is buying new equipment for the Canadian forces. And this is all part of our plan to boost our overall defense spending to try and hit that NATO target of 5% of GDP. It's a very ambitious level. We're only running at about 2% right now. But the plan behind this industrial strategy is to do as much of that spending as possible in Canada. Currently, about between 70 and 80% of our defense spending is in the United States. That is, we buy equipment and munitions from the United States, and Carney wants to reverse that. He says this has been a good relationship over the years, but it has now become what he calls a dependency. So the idea here is to triple the size of the defense industry in Canada, or at least triple its revenues. It will create, Carney says, 125,000 jobs over the next 10 years. And he'd like to get to the point where about 70% of our defense spending goes to Canadian firms, not to U.S. firms. Listen to how the Prime Minister described this today.
Our Canadian armed forces will be backed by a resilient Canadian defence industrial base. Every dollar will be spent to maximize jobs, careers and industries right here in Canada. As I mentioned earlier, we'll start by concentrating on those sovereign capabilities that are critical to our ability to defend our country. These are areas where we're already strong or where we have the potential to lead.
Now, a major component of this strategy is something called the Defense Investment Agency. This is a new government branch that Carney opened up last year. It's a little bit like the Major Projects Office we've heard about for these big infrastructure projects, these nation-building projects like pipelines, except it's going to be about defense. And it's going to kind of coordinate the development of this industry. We already have a defense industry in Canada. It is not huge, but obviously the objective here is to grow it quite largely. Part of the way this could be done is by retooling our steel and aluminum production, which have been hit by U.S. tariffs very badly, kind of retooling that for defense and trying to create a market for that within Canada. They're also going to be looking towards exports of defense equipment. That is, if we can build up this industry here in Canada, we can start selling to other countries. And Carney talking about how over the weekend some of his ministers signed on to this European arrangement called the SAFE Act. Basically, it is a pool of defense procurement pooling. So the idea is that all the countries in Europe plus Canada could buy from the same source, get cheaper prices, and also control those supply chains so that we're buying not from the United States, but from Europe plus Canada. The problem, though, is how do you actually make this happen? A lot of nice words from the Prime Minister today, very eloquent speech about the need to create this industry and to sort of repatriate our defense spending, but how you actually get there is where the rubber hits the road. Think about some of the big procurement projects we have coming up in our defense. Well, we're buying new submarines. We don't have an ability to build submarines in Canada, so we're looking at competing bids from companies in Germany as well as in South Korea. And then there is, of course, the ongoing discussion about the new fighter jets to replace our fleet of aging CF-18s. We've ordered some F-35s from an American company, Lockheed Martin. A lot of pressure on the government to reconsider that decision for future purchases and thinking about buying the Saab fighter jets, the Griffin fighter jets that are built in Sweden. That would be part of this SAFE Act arrangement. The Americans aren't going to like that. So far, the reaction to this speech, though, not really great from the Conservative opposition. They're saying this is a salad bowl of buzzwords in this strategy and are raising questions about how it will actually be implemented. But as we say, FISA, lots of money, $180 billion over 10 years, now on the table for this new initiative in defense spending.